And here we are. Welcome back to the Richard Sophomore. We never sit out. We your hosts, MD and CD. Today, what do we got going on? We had a video previously, a while back, talking about the hardest schedules in college football. Some of them, there's plenty of hard schedules in college football. But today we're talking about the easiest schedules in college football. And to avoid talking about some of the same conferences, and this isn't to call out any particular conferences, okay? We're gonna pick one from every single conference and talk about it. And you're gonna sit here and be like, "Well, why'd you talk about this team when you could have talked about Liberty?" Because everyone knows Liberty's schedule is the easiest schedule in the country, and we wanted to talk about a different schedule. I know that you guys watching this video, clicking on it, you knew and you were expecting to see Liberty in this video, but guess what? It's not gonna happen. You're gonna have to tune in, hit the like button because you like the content, and you're gonna have to subscribe to see other content. But you're gonna have to stick around to the end of the video to make sure that you find and figure out what are these teams that we believe have the easiest conferences. Sorry, not just the easiest conferences, easy schedules which are reflected in their conference schedules.
Exactly. And we're talking about this is reflected in their win total, right? You're going to see teams like, whoa, it's a pretty high win total for this team. Maybe got a new coach and whatever it may be, reflected in their conference odds, right? We're going to run through that a little bit, maybe sneak peek on a special, Sun Belt action potentially that Matthew's looking up. But regardless, though, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the content. Like Matthew said, like and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you like our content, like the video, all that good stuff. And we hope you stick around because we got a lot of stuff coming this summer. All right, we're doing team previews. We're doing a lot of other stuff. And obviously, once fall comes, we're gonna hit the ground running. All right, so we love it. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, SEC Media Days is what, like a couple weeks away?
We're getting there.
Dude, I'm making preparations right now for that, and it is there's a lot going on there for sure. So it is just around the corner. I'm excited that you guys are gonna be joining us along the way. Uh, let's just get into it, man. We're first gonna talk about. I know they're not a conference, but let's talk about the independents, okay? And we're not including Oregon State and Washington State in this. We're gonna include them in the Mountain West. The independents, we decided we want to talk about Notre Dame's schedule. We've talked about them a little bit before. Honestly, I mean, we could have definitely talked about UConn's schedule because that it's a bit of a joke itself. But however, Notre Dame's schedule is usually very tough. Okay, it usually is, and people like to hoop on Notre Dame for having easy schedules. And yeah, this is a video about college football's easiest schedules. Okay, but this isn't to say that this is the easiest schedule. I think this is just an easier schedule that Notre Dame's had in maybe a while.
I mean, just look at their win total, 10 and a half. 10 and a half. That means that Vegas says they're 10 and 2, they're 11 and 1, and they are right smack dab in the middle of a playoff conversation. And no, not everything is the end all be all about making the playoffs. We're a show about college football. We love the regular season, but also for Notre Dame fans, Marcus Freeman, that's going to matter. That's important in a 12-team playoff with this schedule. And the main part about the schedule makes it so favorable. I mean, yes, you got teams like A&M and Louisville won a bunch of games last year, and Florida State won undefeated last year, and USC, blah, blah, blah. But you have a ton of games. Most of those games are at home. The only tough road games are at A&M, which, by the way, Texas A&M, which we know more than most, is a tough place. Kyle Field will be buzzing. College game day is there. Fantastic that it's at a college site and not some neutral site. And then USC, your bookend. That's the end of the year, November 30th, right? Thanksgiving. Notre Dame's kind of always playing USC there on the road. And who knows? Who knows what could happen? But their win total is 7.5 for USC. And no, that's not the end all be all, but that's pretty telling about what kind Vegas is a little bit worried about the new offense coming in, new defense coming in, right? A lot of question marks out there for USC, who's going to be probably beaten up by a tough schedule of their own. So Notre Dame, I mean, it's pretty favorable for them to do some damage and obviously climb those playoff rankings as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Yeah, maybe this isn't the easiest schedule of all the independents, but yeah, I mean, you explained it great. Like this is way better than what Notre Dame has seen in the past. Like they're consistently having a top five hardest schedule. And look, you can look at FPI metrics, collegefootballschedules.com, whatever that website is, or FBS schedules. You can look at any metric, all right, that measures strength of schedule or strength of record, and you can find Notre Dame in the top 10. There have
Mhm.
been people in the past that have been, quick to judge Notre Dame's schedule because they play a unique schedule. It's not necessarily a easy schedule. It's just a unique schedule in the sense that they're independents and they can schedule. There are no conference games, right? There are rivalries, of course. There are games that they play every year, but and in some years those rivals are better than others. Look, it is what it is this year, and Notre Dame's got a very good chance to make the college football playoffs. And not being in a conference, it makes things, how do you say, like, it makes it interesting. It makes it interesting as an independent. I guess we have to see kind of how it plays out, to like see how this actually affects Notre Dame, this new expanded playoffs and them not being in a conference. But the reality is they're a they're a good team with a manageable schedule, sitting at a win total of 10.5.
Yeah, and also like you look at their schedule and you're checking out the home and away. It's like three true road games. Texas A&M, obviously, like I said earlier, that's going to be tough, right? But at Purdue, it's a game Notre Dame is going to be favored in and should probably win, right? And then not until November 30th. You're going from September 14th to November 30th, not having a true road game. Now, yes, I know Navy, is up in East Rutherford, right? You're playing there, and which is awesome. You're playing Army in the Bronx in the Yankee Stadium, which is awesome as well. And I'm a big fan of the anti-neutral site in college football, but those are also fun atmospheres. I'm sure, those fan bases will be excited to travel. And then also Georgia Tech, technically a neutral site game going to be in Atlanta in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which I don't know how Georgia Tech got roped in to doing that, right? They did our guy so dirty there, Brent Key. And regardless, though, it's still not a true road game. So you're going to have, obviously Notre Dame fans will travel a little bit there, which again
I mean,
adds to
it,
the
it
fact that
is it basically is a home game for Georgia Tech,
but it's not like you're
but it's
playing
not
the
in
Georgia
there. It's not
Bulldogs
in.
in
It's not in.
Atlanta, and it's not like you're playing LSU in New Orleans. I think it's a little bit different than having to go play Georgia Tech,
But I mean, it
in
is the
at their home
same.
stadium.
It's the same city.
Yeah,
It's just not in
I
Bobby Dodd.
understand. Yeah, I understand that, but I do think there is, whatever Vegas, is going to attribute to neutral site in Atlanta, neutral site. I think it's going to be at least something. You're going to have to consider it just a little bit. I mean, um, what the nice part that Chick-fil-A will be open in there, which is pretty cool. But
It'll
Saturday,
be sad. It'll be Saturday.
yeah. But
So
yeah, I mean, you're looking at the games. Well, real quick, to talk about the games you have to win. Or I'm sorry, yeah, the games you have to win. Obviously, you're looking at your no, you're looking at your G5 programs. Northern Illinois, Miami, Ohio. As much respect as we have for those two programs in the MAC, you got to win those games, obviously. And I mean, look at year one and Marcus Freeman. I mean, they lost those games. They lost those type of games, and obviously in year three, you expect that not to happen. We do as well. Your ACC games. I mean, other than Florida State and Louisville, and by the way, I love Georgia Tech. I love Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech also has a gauntlet of a schedule, right? So that's not going to be like
yeah,
they're coming off and they're
they're
just
gonna be showing
fresh
up
and they're
in body
whatever.
bags.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them, and they're yeah. So, but obviously Florida State and Louisville, much different teams than they were just a year ago. Both playing in the ACC championship game, losing a ton to the NFL, right? Having to replace it with the transfer portal, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, obviously both those teams and staffs you feel pretty good about, but it's still not going to be plug and play just automatically. We'll see what happens there, and then obviously USC to close it, like I said earlier, like it's I think it's pretty good. I mean, you got a bunch of teams in rebuilding year, A&M off a new coaching change, which I mean might hurt you actually. Probably rather play Jimbo Fisher, but regardless, I mean everything sets up for Notre Dame to have to be there. It's there for them.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the ACC. When I look at the ACC, there are a few schedules that are favorable, right? Because like, what do you have to do in the ACC, right? What do you have to do in the ACC to have a more favorable schedule, Christopher?
You just don't get Notre Dame. Don't get Notre
Well, you
Dame,
don't get Notre
right?
Dame.
Don't get Clemson. Don't get
Don't get
Florida State.
Clemson. Don't get Florida
Have your
State.
tough games at home, aka Miami.
Yep, 100%. So Syracuse, they have a win total of 7.5. And you're like, what? You just did a double take. And you're like, okay, well, what's going on here? Well, okay, we got the introduction of Fran Brown. Okay, new head coach, new culture. Uh, brought in a pretty solid coaching staff there. Another a good set of transfer portal class folks too. They didn't lose a lot. I mean, I think they lost Leon Lowry was probably their biggest loss in the portal, and like Was he that big? I mean, PFF, I think he was like their third or fourth lowest graded player on that defense. So I don't know. Are you laughing about that because he's at Wisconsin?
Yeah, no, 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 would never, would never.
Would never. All right. Well, I'm just saying, okay. I don't think the 7.5 is crazy. Now, their ACC title winner odds is at plus 4,800, which if you're listening to this video, you can probably remember last year, we had some Hail Mary passes for some of these conference teams that had easy schedules and it happened to pay out pretty decently if you hedged at the appropriate times. But I mean that could be a value. It could be value. Because think about it. I mean, you got Stanford, which you draw. You love that. You get Boston College on the road. Who cares? Although they get a little frisky over there. Pitt is on the road, right? And that'll be a tough environment, but Pitt is that roster is it's not great right now. Cal is now an ACC team. Now you have to go all the way across the country to go play Cal, right? And you don't know, is it Mendoza over there? Is it Chandler Rogers over there? I don't know. I don't even know. I have no idea who's going to play quarterback for them. Cal did have a good end of the season, so we'll see how they do in that game. But I mean, overall, you're bringing Kyle McCord, still have a good running back in there. You bring back Aronde Gadsden from injury. Okay, you bring in a weapon like Justice Ross Simmons. I mean, like that offense all of a sudden is like pretty respectable in terms of the weapons that are there. You're just looking at the ACC schedule, like you could do it. However, going to NC State is no easy task. I mean, that is where good ACC teams go to die.
And let me tell you about NC State, by the way, a team. I mean, we haven't gotten into a real deep dives of these teams, and obviously you'll hear about every ACC team broken down, obviously. But looking at their schedule, right? You have Tennessee, neutral site on Charlotte, and then you've got Clemson on the road, in mid-September. After that, though, the schedule really opens up for them, and they're going to be eyeing the prize ACC title game, right? Let's not blow it this year, for Dave Dorn, and is it that Dave Dorn? Yeah, sorry. And so this is like a game that they're going to have circled on their schedule that they can't lose, right? And crazy to think that Syracuse is like, the circle schedule, for the ACC teams, but it's the reality of like NC State's going to be in not desperation mode, but just determined mode, right? To not blow their chance to be in the ACC title game, to play for a spot in the playoffs, right? Like that's a realistic outcome for that team this year. And obviously Syracuse, let's go to them, right? In the middle of October. That's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and look, now is not the time to talk about win totals, okay? Because we'll save most of that talk for previews. But if this was at 6.5, I would be all over the over. 7.5 though, for me, I mean, yeah, it is an easy schedule relative, to maybe some other schedules in the conference, but you still got to play. Like the amount of games that you still can lose on this schedule is still kind of alarming, right? Ohio
Yeah.
loses everyone, right? You're not worried about that. UNLV, yeah, I know they had a good season last year and their win total was at 7.5, but I Jaden Mayava was kind of a big loss. I know you like what's his name, Sluka over there, Matthew
Luka.
Matthew Sluka. But I don't think you're out of conference is very tough. But then beyond that, like Virginia Tech is not easy. I don't think California on the road is super easy. NC State, Georgia Tech. But when you look at this schedule from a macro perspective, and you look at the rest of the conference's schedules, I think Syracuse's schedule is arguably the easiest in the ACC.
No, that we both agreed in that sentiment. That's why we're talking about them. Yeah, the thing that worries me, is that, like you said, there's so many games that are quote unquote toss ups. It's like, well, Syracuse, they could win that game, right? But they also like, there's going to be a wide range of outcomes that like theoretically is possible for Syracuse to be in. And like the median is obviously probably, 7.5, 7 wins, like, Vegas has them. But I mean, there's a scenario where they're 10-2, right? And their only losses are at NC State and versus Miami in the last week of the year. Or there's Also, a possibility where you're 5-7 and you didn't even make a bowl game because you lost tough games like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and going to California, stuff like that. But that's just the reality of a first year coach. But it's also like it's a blessing to play this kind of schedule in the first year because at the end of the day, like winning 6, 7 games, going to a bowl game for Syracuse in year one of Fran Brown, it's gonna do great things for them, and they're already paying off recruiting wise, but even more so, just being able to continue that momentum into the fall, and then obviously into that next cycle into 2026. So, in 2026 class, I'm sorry, recruiting class. So obviously that's important, and it's a nice little gift for Fran Brown and Syracuse fans.
Plus 4,800. It is.
It,
It might be a little bit too sneaky for me. Like, can something be too sneaky?
if
I think something's gonna be too
I
sneaky.
think it's a little too
It's
good to
so
be
sneaky that
true.
it's like it's too obvious. It's
Yeah,
like
I think
it's
that
like
Virginia
oh
Tech game.
they're like dangling this thing in front of you. You're like you know that there's theoretical value there, but it's like are there gonna be like 48 other times in my life that I'm gonna take something at plus 4,800? Maybe.
I mean, the thing is, the only play or like part of the play is like, okay, if you think that they can beat, Virginia Tech and that they can beat Georgia Tech and that they can beat, um, obviously Cal, right, going across country, then you get down to, week 12 or week 13, 14, really, this year, actually, November 30th, playing Miami, and Syracuse is at a win and they're in scenario in the ACC. Then you can hedge, for a couple weeks if they beat Miami somehow and then and whatnot. So you kind of maneuver with that, but I don't know. I don't it's tied for the eighth best odds. Like a lot of teams to climb and just too many teams in that, middle of the pack that I just feel pretty good about this year with the ACC, and I don't want to be betting against them because I can't bet on everyone because obviously they're going to play each other and someone's going to have to lose. So it's just I'm kind of going to be cautiously, tentative with my ACC picks.
Well, let's get done talking about the ACC. Let's move over to the Big Ten. I'm gonna let you kind of take this over. You threw out Rutgers as the name to talk about easiest schedules as a team that's plus 12,000 to win the Big Ten.
I think
Please do not bet on Rutgers to win the Big Ten, listeners of the show.
no,
Please do not do this.
but if you were, here would be the
No.
rationale. Here would be the red. Okay, fine, fine. Don't. But okay, in my
but
opinion, there is a tier one in the Big Ten, right? And
in
there
your
are four
opinion,
teams, maybe tier one, maybe tier 1.5 to 2, right? This year you have Michigan, obviously conference championship, national championship defending, right? All that stuff. Ohio State, Oregon, supremely talented, and in my opinion, Penn State's in that group, right? Rutgers is the only Big Ten team that avoids all four of them. In my opinion, everybody else in the Big Ten, yes, there is obviously a tiers below them, and there's an order that they're in, obviously, but everybody else from Purdue and Northwestern up to, Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, Washington, like they're all beatable. They can all hang with each other any given day. And I know it's not probable, but statistic possibility. It's like rolling, the number 6 dice, 5, 6, 10 times in a row. And the big Rutgers were to do that. I mean, you're out of conference at Virginia Tech, right? That might be one of your toughest games. Not gonna lie. And that's more respect to Virginia Tech, right? But Washington at home, you don't have to travel across the country. Actually, Washington has to travel across the country from Seattle all the way to New Jersey at Nebraska, right? And obviously, I feel pretty good about Nebraska. We love their D line. Who knows though? Like Rutgers plays really good defense. If they can run the ball with Monagai, right? Kyle Monagai,
Monangai,
Monagai.
Monang.
Who knows? Who knows? Obviously, Wisconsin, a lot of pieces to still figure out there, quarterback wise. Who knows? UCLA is in shambles, right? Who knows what's going to happen there? USC could be, from here to here on their possibility of outcomes. If you aren't listening on podcast, you can't see this. It's a
But it's
large
a
range of
wide,
possibility.
this is a wide margin.
Wide range, and a Minnesota guy, right? Who knows there? Ethan Calic Manis revenge game. right? Kirk Soraka revenge game. Who knows? There, like you're seeing these teams. There's a trend here: Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State. Like there are all these teams that Rutgers on any given Saturday can potentially beat, right? In my opinion, like Rutgers this year, right? They return a lot of guys. I feel pretty good about them, and they've done a good job recruiting. But I don't feel good about them having a chance to beat Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, right? Or at least like feel good about it, right? Maybe there's a 10% chance, 12% chance, whatever it may be. But Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, like if those are your toughest schedules, if those are your toughest games in the Big Ten, you have to feel pretty good about that. At the 11th best odds, plus 12,000, do not bet on it. But if you were, there is rationale to it. Just saying. You get to November, and you could literally be favored in the rest of the games. And you could, yeah, okay.
Loyal listeners, this was a sentence that was said to me by CD today when we were figuring these out. He said, "There's a chance that Rutgers can go 1-11 and 11-1." He said that is on the possible outcome of range. Well, yeah, I'll say this.
I'm sorry, 2-10. It was 2-10 because Akron and Howard feel pretty good about getting wins there.
Okay, sure, 2-10. But I'll back you up here, I guess, a little bit because I mean they don't play a team with a win total over 7.5. They don't.
That's what I'm saying.
And you know, win totals, schedules built into win totals, right? But like Washington, you know, that new team at USC. I mean, I think USC's got a really tough schedule, guys. So like that is reflected in that win total, right? Like they in different years and different schedules, they have it's more of like an 8 or 9 win team, right? But that schedule is pretty brutal. Okay. But yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing. I'm smelling what you're stepping in. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I will not be taking that ticket to the counter. Or sorry, walking away from the counter with that ticket. If someone does, I'd respect you for it. That doesn't mean I think you're right in the brain. But man, I've said some pretty heinous stuff preseason before that has come back to bite me in the butt. And I don't know. I love chaos. If Rutgers made the college football playoffs, did they win the first ever college football game ever? Didn't they win it? No, it was like Princeton. But Rutgers was like one of the first teams ever to like play college football. They were like an old school, so something. If you want to stay romantic about college football, you know, you want Rutgers to make the college football playoffs.
Well,
Anyways,
and like I said, okay, like there's a possibility, right? Not probability, but possibility. 11-1, dare I say, 12-0. What do you do? And let's talk hypotheticals. Let's have some fun here. It is June. Let's give our Rutgers fans some joy here, some hope, what it may be, right? What do you do if Rutgers is 12-0 and they go to Big Ten championship and they lose, right? They play Oregon or Ohio State or whatever it may be, and it's pretty outclassed. Like, do you put them in? The runner-up in the Big Ten, right? 12-1 Rutgers. Don't think it's crazy. But yeah. 1869, Rutgers and Princeton completed the first ever intercollegiate football game.
So I was right. I was right about that. But Princeton won, right? Rutgers lost.
No.
You gotta find that for me. You have to.
I'm looking.
Because imagine that. Gosh. How can you not be romantic?
Rutgers won in a classic Big Ten fight, 6-4.
So
are you kidding me?
Okay. I'm pretty sure that was a score of like an Iowa Penn State game. Like
yes,
not that long ago.
As well. So it's not even a scorigami, which is fine, but
it's not even the Iowa Penn State game was not even scorigami because it was actually the least scorigami because it was literally the first ever score in college football ever. That's crazy. All right, you learn something new every day, guys. You learn something new every day.
Come for the college football. Come for the easiest schedules and stay for the history and laughter. We love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to the Big 12. Let's look. This was one that you put on here as well. Convince me. Why is Utah one of the easiest schedules in the Big 12 and therefore in college football?
Well, part of it is little bit relative, right? So there's a little bit of bias because, I mean, there is so much parity in the Big 12, which we've talked about, which we love. The power grab is there, but there are a couple teams and programs that you feel pretty good about, coaching staffs, et cetera, et cetera. Utah is one of them, right? What they have done in the Pac-12, sustained success, not only from the Mountain West, back with Urban Meyer, but also through and through here with Kyle Whittingham. And you look at their schedule, by the way, you're seeing that week 2, right? Week 2, Baylor is an out-of-conference game, right? That was a home and home schedule before all the chaos that is college football realignment. So Utah, Baylor in week 2 is an out of conference game. Do not be confused with the Baylor that's also in the Big 12 because it is the same team. Regardless, though, you're looking at our conference and Southern Utah, Utah State, which you don't even have to leave your state to go to Utah State. It gets an away game, but I mean, we'll see, right? I feel pretty good about that. Obviously, Spencer Petras might be the quarterback there, so Utah's defense should be all right. Baylor, obviously, they're kind of still figuring it out. Dave Aranda, obviously, is a couple years removed from that Sugar Bowl team, and we'll see what happens, right? DeQuan Finn in town could be some fun things, but I still think like that's a winnable game for Utah.
Jake
Absolutely.
Spavital, new
At
offensive
home.
coordinator.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? But to me, you look at September 21st and September 28th are probably your toughest games, right? And you have at Oklahoma State on the road, which is not going to be easy. Ask anybody trying to go to Bedlam and get a victory there. It's going to be tough. That team brings back a ton of talent. I get that, right? And then Arizona, right? New coach, but it's still going to be tough, but you get them at home. The thing is, after that, though, it really opens up as much as it can in the Big 12 relatively, right? Relatively. Arizona State on the road, that's probably one of the teams where it's like, and with all due respect to Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State, like they're getting there. I like where they're going, right? But in this year, like if you're Utah and you have to have X amount of home games, X amount of home games and X amount of road games, you're going to want them in conference against Arizona State, Houston with a new coach, Colorado, right? Like these are games, and that might come back to bite me, but the reality is you have to have some road games in the Big 12. Those are some of the teams that you kind of want to be playing on the road. So you can get your tougher games at home, like Arizona, like Iowa State, right? And TCU, right? Who I think is going to be a little bit improved this year from a year ago. So I think it opens up pretty. You're going to know pretty soon, right? By October, if Utah's for real and if they're, vying for that playoff spot, right? That the conference championship game in the Big 12. And they're went total, like you said, 9.5, right? Pretty darn high and pretty friendly, I think, to the schedule. I think it's pretty fair. And they're the odd, not the odds on favorite. They're the first best odds in the Big 12 to win the conference at plus 290. Right. So I mean, obviously that says something about what Vegas thinks about their schedule and compared to the rest of the Big 12 as well.
Yeah, I mean, things that stand out to me, like things last year, like when I was looking at easy schedules in the Big 12, I was like, all right, who's going to draw all 4? Who's going to be the one? I was Oklahoma State last year. It was Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Look where they ended up, And it's not that they draw all of those 4. They
And
don't
when
draw
you say all 4,
Cincinnati.
you're talking about the American teams and BYU?
I was talking about the American teams in BYU. Yep, that's exactly what I was talking about. You don't draw all 4. You do draw BYU, Houston, UCF, who actually might be really good this year. We have yet to see. Yeah, and then beyond that, getting both Arizona schools, getting Colorado, it plays out kind of favorably in that sense. However, I don't think drawing Oklahoma State, having to go on the road, TCU, Iowa State, like we've said, like those are some of the harder teams in the Big 12. So while you get the sugar that is, the Houston, the BYU, the Arizona State, right? You also get kind of some of the salt there with TCU and UCF, but it's got to be balanced, right? Got to be balanced in some ways. So, but Utah probably is. They should be the favorite to win the Big 12, I think. But I'm probably not taking that plus 290. In the Big 12, if you're taking the Big 12 champion at plus 290, you're
Sicko.
You're high on crack.
Yeah, that's wild. You got to feel really good about, your quarterback and your backup quarterback and your third string quarterback. No, but the reality too is what pushes them over the edge for me is that out of conference slate, right? Not only we're talking about winning the Big 12, but also like winning 12, 10, 11, 12 games Southern Utah, Utah State, Baylor is about as friendly as it gets in the Big 12. And you're looking at the other teams with relatively easy conference schedule. And also, like, it's almost like the Liberty effect where, like, Utah doesn't have to play Utah, right? So, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's the same thing with Georgia was having nice, easy schedules in the SEC East for all those years is because they didn't have to, no, they didn't have to play Georgia. And the reality is, like, these other teams that have maybe some also favorable schedules, they had to play Utah. And also, I do think, now you'd appreciate this, not drawing West Virginia, crazy as to say, it's kind of a nice thing. And so is Kansas and Kansas State. You're not drawing any of those three teams. And those are three dangerous teams this year in the
What
Big
Texas
12.
Tech? Did you say Texas
Texas
Tech?
Tech. Yeah. Yeah. Those four teams. I mean, it's you're gonna have to play some of those teams, right? But like you get Arizona, Oklahoma State, but Iowa State, UCF, you feel pretty good about. But some of the teams, like it's pretty nice to not have to play Kansas schools, Texas Tech, and Joe McGuire, and obviously going on to Morgantown in West Virginia.
Yeah, and also like dynamically the schedule, I think like works really nice. Um, you never except like in September, right? You have to go on the road back-to-back weeks, Utah State, Oklahoma State, right? But it is what it is there. But then after that, you don't have to play back-to-back road games the entire rest of the season. And after that, you still have your two byes. So I think dynamically, wait, am I reading that? Is that game actually at Utah State?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Little home and home action or something like that? I don't know. I don't know. But either way, you don't have to play back-to-back road games after September. Feels like a relatively decently easy schedule to me.
Yeah, and it's like what an hour and a half, less than an hour and a half from Utah to Utah State. So it's a little bus ride, not going to hurt anybody. So yeah, like you said, the dynamics work pretty well.
Let's move on over to the SEC. Let's talk about Missouri at plus 1,600 to win the SEC at your seventh best odds of any team in the SEC. You're like, oh, how can we put an SEC team in here? Well, like we said, we're talking about one team from every conference, right? So hear us out. Well, actually, legitimately hear us out, okay? Because, like, yeah, you have some tough schedules on this team, but as you've alluded to before to me, this not a conference. I mean, I know the SEC sometimes gets hated on for having not so tough out of conference, but it's not a conference. It's easy. I mean, more than easy. Murray State, Buffalo, which is one of the worst teams in the entire country. Boston College is your Power Five team that you're playing with an over/under win total 4.5, and Massachusetts. Those are your out of conference games. And not only that, you also draw Vanderbilt, you draw Arkansas, and you draw Mississippi State, and you draw South Carolina. Are those not the best teams? I mean, maybe Florida, if you're going just based off win total. Like, that is the only team that you're missing in terms of the
Well,
teams that you'd want to pull.
and by the way, Florida's win total is so low because their schedule is brutal.
Yeah, it's not
Like I
even
said
that
earlier.
bad. It's not even
I mean,
that bad.
yeah, I mean, Mississippi, I mean, it sets up about as favorably as it can for Drink and this Tiger staff. I mean, it sucks that you lose obviously Blake Baker and whatnot, but I mean, you return some nice pieces and the on the road is what worries me about this schedule. Right? Like SEC road games in general are not easy. And just throw in the fact that you got to travel up to Massachusetts, which is obviously not going to worry about losing that game, but it's the travel, it's the fatigue, it's everything else that gets thrown off by having an away game, right? But at A&M, at Alabama, right, those are not easy places to win, and that hence the reason why that win total is below 10 because you're at 9.5 there. But even like South Carolina, I mean, for SEC standards, right, they're
Yeah. Now they'll
obviously
be
not
better this year.
great.
I think they'll be better, even though
Hmm.
the theoretical downgrade at quarterback, right? I don't know, the North Sellers, people inside there
It,
seem to like him a lot. So,
I
but
think
this
that
isn't about South Carolina.
that play style is going to be tough, right? But in general though, like the SEC, like you're going to have tough games. That's the reality, especially adding Texas and OU, which by the way, you missed Texas, you missed
Mhm.
Georgia, right? Probably two teams that Missouri just not want to see at all. Alabama, you have no idea. They have a new coach. the reality, I mean, we feel pretty good about DeBoer and that staff. There's talent on that team, but come October, right? Like you could, that there is a possibility that Bama's pretty beaten up, and that's right before their bye week. That's after them playing Tennessee, after them playing South Carolina, physical team, after them playing Georgia a couple weeks before that. Yeah, dude, the way it breaks is not bye week into the A&M game, right? Bye week into Oklahoma, right? Alabama, off a tough game, tough couple games stretch. Like, I mean, seventh best odds to win the SEC. That to me feels pretty low. And I know Ole Miss, forgot about them. You miss Ole Miss, right? Um, I know there are a lot of really good teams in the SEC this year, talent wise and whatnot, but with the way the schedule works out, like seventh seems a little bit low for me. And plus 1,600. Obviously, I don't know if it's rich enough for me to dabble in it, but it's kind of exciting though for Mizzou fans who have not. I mean, they were in the SEC championship game what, like 10 years ago, but
You do lose a lot on that defense, so this isn't a preview, right? But like I think this could be higher, right? Like I think this win total could be higher if they had kept that, some of those core pieces from that defense last year, as well
yeah,
as Blake Baker. Now we don't know. I don't really know how good Blake Baker is. I mean, he's getting paid $2.5 million to coach at LSU now, so I would assume that he's adept at
probably hurt.
bringing his A game, week in
Yeah,
and week out. And I'm not going to be the judge on the X's and O's part of that, but yeah, I'm with you. When I saw this schedule, I thought that this was for SEC standards and like what is made out to be the gauntlet that is the SEC. I do not think that this is a very difficult schedule, especially for a team of Mizzou's caliber.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there are not many SEC schedules where you're like, okay, we feel, now I know that win total is at 9.5, right? And I know this is going to be like not a hot take at all to be saying this, but um, there are not a ton of SEC schedules that you feel like you could kind of roll out of bed and make a bowl game and maybe win 7 to 8 games. But like that's kind of where you're shaping up here. You got to get up for a couple games, right? And obviously you still have to show up against SEC game like at Auburn, right? They're frisky, South Carolina. You can't like just take the team lightly, but
By the
Arkansas,
way,
Mississippi State.
South Carolina's win totals 5.5, right? What is South Carolina's over under win total with this schedule?
Six and a
Six
half,
and a half,
7.
7?
It's adding at least a
Probably.
1.5, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is.
That's so
That
many.
is a lot, and it's kind of wild. But I mean, yeah, the out of conference, Boston College, Bill O'Brien returned to the SEC. Yeah, Mizzou fans. I mean, you got to be loving it. I mean, it's similar sense where Ole Miss was like, okay, we got a couple year window, or it's like, oh, here it is, right? We're gonna go on this year. Mizzou, you kind of have an opportunity similar to that where you have to execute here and drink. We feel pretty good about, with Coach X and those guys, obviously getting them up for big games. We saw that last year, a big jump they made. And you get some nice pieces in the portal, replace some guys, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, you still got to play on the field, but in terms of sitting here in June, right, we're looking at their schedule, you got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Mountain West Conference. Let's talk about Air Force and why I believe that it's the easiest schedule in the Mountain West. And I think it's close. I think we were debating them and someone else. It's close. And we are including Washington State and Oregon State in this. We absolutely are. And that's kind of part of the criteria, right? Like, what do you want in the Mountain West schedule? Well, you don't want to pull Washington State or Oregon State, right? Those are two of the better teams. You don't want Boise State. That's actually probably number one. You really don't want Fresno State, right? So in this schedule, you end up pulling Fresno
You don't
State
want
and
to
you
go
end up
to
pulling.
Wyoming, but real quick, if you are someone who wants to go to Laramie and is okay with going to Laramie and not throwing the football, wouldn't it be nice if you were Troy
Yeah.
Calhoun? I'm sorry, if you're Troy Calhoun in Air Force who does not need to throw the football to be successful offensively.
Yeah, agreed. 1000%. Like if there is a team, yeah. Although Wyoming has gotten the best of Air Force few of the last years. Um, So like Wyoming is still a tough task for Air Force, but the reality is like this is an easy schedule for them, man. I mean, look, you play Army, you play Navy, right? Who, you know, are special in their own ways, right? In rivalry games, and anything can happen. But Nevada, I mean, how good do we feel about San Diego State? I know. Look, believe me when I tell you that I'm a guy who is high on Sean Lewis. I'm a guy who's high on Sean Lewis, but I don't know if they're ready yet. New Mexico, yeah, Bronco Mendenhall is a fantastic coach, and I think it was a great, unbelievable hire by New Mexico to get Bronco Mendenhall in the building there. Uh, but eh, Baylor is your really tough out of conference game, supposedly. But I don't know, you might be able to beat them. San Jose State, Merrimack. You don't have to travel to Hawaii. I mean, there were just like a lot of things that pointed me in the direction of Air Force kind of being one of the easier schedules in all of college football, or in Mountain West, therefore in college football. I also saw that you pointed out in the notes. I want you to bring it up. Are they playing 6 new head coaches?
Yeah, in the conference, strictly within the conference. And by the way, who knows what will happen with Baylor after potentially losing to Utah, right? Like, who knows with Dave Aranda. But regardless, you have
So they are
quote
playing.
unquote, eight quote
They're
unquote conference games, right? 7 Mountain West teams and Oregon State. Oregon State also has a new head coach, right? You're playing in order, right? You got San Jose State, new coach, right? Coach Ken,
Niumatalolo.
right? Wyoming's got a new head coach, right? New Mexico, new head coach. Oregon State, new head coach. Nevada, new head coach. San Diego State, new head coach. And now, yes, we feel pretty good about some of those guys, but the reality is, like, year one, it's not an easy task to rebuild some of these teams. There's a reason why there was a vacancy in the head coach position in the first place. Now, if you're San Jose State, your head coach got promoted, right? Awesome. Good for you. If you're Wyoming, your guy retired. Different. Oregon State, same deal, but you're still getting gutted. You're still changing a lot of things. Who knows what may happen? It's pretty favorable to play 6 conference games with new coaching staffs with a guy like Troy Calhoun, who's been there, done that. Give me Troy Calhoun all day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I mean, they're
If
open total 6.5. 6.5 with this plus 1600. Now, part of that's because, Baylor's probably going to bring that down. Colorado State's pretty good. Fresno State, like you're still getting, but by the way, Colorado State, Fresno State, all your tough, most of your tough conference games are at home, which is awesome. The quote unquote bottom tier of the Mountain West, you're playing, New Mexico. I guess we'll throw Army in there, right? But who knows with Army? I mean, that's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But Nevada, San Jose State, like those are teams that you want to like. They're playing on the road, and I think that's going to help you. I think come November when you're fighting for the Mountain West, and you're sitting there, and maybe your out of conference record is not great because someone lost to Army or and Baylor or whatnot, but you're sitting there and you're looking pretty right in the Mountain West, and I think this schedule sets up super favorably, I think, to Air Force. Obviously, you
yeah,
did.
if you include Oregon State, I mean 6 new head coaches in the Mountain West. That is more than any other conference. The close second would be the Big Ten, believe it or not, with 5.
So they're
So
getting all the new coaches in the Mountain West. Am I right? Yeah, all the new head coaches.
what do you mean?
Air Force plays all of the new head coaches that are
Oh yeah,
coming to
yeah,
Mountain West.
yeah. Every single one of them. Yeah, and with it, yeah, entire new. And do they also play? No, they don't. Okay, but yeah. Anyways, Air Force, pretty easy schedule. Let's move over to the American Athletic Conference. Let's talk about East Carolina. Holy cow. This schedule, like when we when we talk about like East Carolina is not a very good football team. Their over under win total is 6.5. That is directly reflected in their schedule. Let's break this down. All right. Now, let's talk about their out of conference. Their out of conference, you know, relative to other out of conference schedules, it may be quote unquote easier, but for them, like I wouldn't expect them. to dominate Old Dominion. I would expect them to win that game. I would not expect them to beat Appalachian State. I would not expect them to beat Liberty. But and then they play UTSA right after that, and then they're like, all right, so now we're 2-3, limping into conference. What do we have left? What do you have left? Nothing. You
Oh,
have
come
nothing.
on. Come on. North Texas. We love Eric Morris. At Army, never going to be easy. Everybody else. Well, Tom Herman and Florida Atlantic, who knows? Nobody else. I mean, but these are teams like East Carolina, who was not good last year. And while they got some guys returning right offensively, and their O line, it started getting better at the end of the year. But by the way, at the end of the year, you were playing FAU, Navy, Tulsa. So of course you're gonna be looking better against the bottom of the barrel on the American. But the reality is like you're playing those teams again. You're getting that schedule again. So if you can continue that momentum, after maybe bumpy up and down September, your October, November is about as good as you could ask for.
As a team in the American.
Yeah.
College football.
I would throw like one of the easiest October, Novembers in college football. I get like the CUSA, you're gonna have some pretty easy schedules, right? And Liberty has one too. FIU, obviously, the MAC. But I mean, jeez Louise. Now let's talk about East Carolina a little bit, right? Chase Sowell, hoping we come back. Year 2, right? Kind of produced a little bit for you. At D line, JD Lampley, is he coming back? We like that. Lewis, he's gone. That sucks, but he was pretty good. And then your cornerback duo. The problem is, it's gonna be tough. I mean, Jake Garcia, is he the guy? You like him, don't you? You thought?
Yeah, I've always been a Jake Garcia stan. I never understood. I've not been a stan of is Caden Hauser, who's also in that building, and it's like,
Yeah. So
sorry, Michigan State fans. I was kind of mean to y'all. I didn't mean to be so mean to y'all, but I was. I was very mean.
it was tough. But yeah, if you're looking about teams that you want to play in the AAC, right? I mean, Army, Temple, Charlotte, Tulsa, FAU, Navy. Those teams look familiar. You're going to see them on the screen because those are literally the teams that they play from October to November. That is crazy. That is crazy. Teams you want to avoid. I'm sorry.
There are so many MAC schedules in that month that so many MAC teams that have a schedule in October more difficult than the one that East Carolina has.
They would trade. They would swap. They would absolutely swap.
No,
and by the way,
okay, no, that's criminal. That's criminal. That's not actually true. But relative to East Carolina's talent to these other teams and some of these other MAC teams, it's relative. It's not actually true. Or obviously, if you were to switch those teams, East Carolina would shred through those opponents. Oh, I mean, maybe not.
Who knows? Who knows? But could they play on a Tuesday and Wednesday night?
Yeah, if it was a Tuesday night, East Carolina is in for one. We're talking fumbles. We're talking muffed punts. We're talking. I mean,
it's 4th and 7 at the 45-yard line. Let's go for it, right?
Exactly.
God. But yeah, teams you want to play and you do not want to play in the AAC, right? They get UTSA. That's tough, right? But you get them early. You kind of get it out of the way. And then you get to Charlotte, and then you can just get a bye week and reset, regroup before the rest of your schedule. But yeah, UTSA, which you get. But Memphis, Tulane, USF, teams you all avoid, right? And SMU's gone. So, yeah, I mean, this was a clear cut, one of the easiest schedules in the country, relatively, right? But also in the American Conference for sure. And just gonna throw out there, right? Over on the winner, 6.5, which is, like we talked earlier, good for them. Like going a bowl game in a vacuum for East Carolina and the Americans, like, oh, that's awesome. But with the schedule, like you're hoping 7-8 wins, right? We'll call it 7. Yeah, 7-8 wins, right? 8 wins would be awesome. But then the American Conference Sleeper Championship plus 1,600, which by the way, zero value in that. That is way too low. But it's also like it's because of Vegas sees that schedule
because it's gonna be plus like 500 in the championship game if they make it. So
I mean, they could be 7-1.
You can't even hedge that.
They could be 7-1, and obviously you're who knows, but I mean, to some teams above them, that they miss is Rice, South Florida, UTSA, Tulane. Like those, I'm sorry, Rice, South Florida, Tulane, and Memphis. Those are all teams ahead of them in the conference, quote unquote, conference championship race. And they get them. I mean, the only team that potentially you might want to play and you can substitute UTSA for or North Texas for is UAB. But Trent Dilfer, who knows there? I mean, they got some guys, potentially getting better in year two. But
They got shredded in the transfer portal. Jacob Zeno, though.
yeah, Jacob Zeno. Oh,
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the Sun Belt. I mean, the Sun Belt has become, I'm going to talk about this. Sun Belt's become one of my favorite conferences to talk about.
yeah.
And these are biases. It has become one of my favorite conferences to talk about. We're talking about James Madison, and this schedule after last year, going undefeated, they get rewarded. Well, they get Kurt Signetti goes to Indiana, right? But honestly, like, dude, how old is that guy? Now, okay, I thought it was a pretty good hire for Indiana, right? But realistically, I don't know if he's in the long-term plans, for James Madison.
It would have been nice to just have him ride out in the sunset, James Madison, win a couple Sun Belt titles, go to the playoffs a couple
Maybe,
times,
yeah, maybe.
have a good time there, obviously. But Bob Chesney's no slouch.
Yeah,
Bob freaking Chesney, no slouch at all.
And look, this James Madison team loses a lot of talent. We understand that on this show. We understand that. But you know what I also understand? Bob Chesney's a good coach. They still have some talent there. And they play a really friggin' easy schedule. There's a reason that their win total is at 8.5 right now. They play Charlotte is one of their more important out-of-conference games. North Carolina, which in-state, could get a little interesting there. That's all I'm going to say.
James Madison is in Virginia, right?
Oh, you're right about that. You're right about that. But dude,
you're thinking about App State, but regardless,
but it's like right there. So
North Carolina hates playing Sun Belt teams, and
North
they
Carolina
should.
hates
They
playing Sun Belt.
should hate. So who knows? Who knows?
So and then, good God, is ULM's over in a win total at 1.5?
I know.
No way. Is that actually what it is? Did you make a
Or
typo?
Brian Vincent. Maybe I made an error, but I'll double check that.
Anyways, but I'll run through the schedule while Christopher is checking to make sure that Brian Vincent is not gonna. I mean, I don't know what that's poor guy. But anyways, they play two teams. They play one, two, three, four, five. Five teams four teams in the Sun Belt with no run win total of 4.5 or less. And they also play Marshall at home. Sure, they play App State, revenge game. And they play at Georgia Southern is one of their road games in conference. At ULM is one of their road games. Is it really 1.5?
It's minus 184 at 1.5
for the over.
The over, yeah, the over, yeah.
Okay. Well,
the under would be vile. But Brian Vincent's we knew he had his work cut out for him. We knew he did. But again, teams you want to play in the MAC. I'm sorry, teams you want to play in the Sun Belt. ULM. I was thinking about Ball State when I was talking about the MAC. You play ULM. You want to play Old Dominion, the Georgia schools, Southern Miss, right? Like those are the teams you want to be seeing there on your conference, and you get them. You get them this year. You get all of them.
Good God. This Lou Monroe team. I'm looking at their depth chart. I don't even know if they're gonna have whatever. Sorry. Maybe that's for another video. But the reality is, yeah, you lost a lot, like we said. You still have a lot. And you play a really nice, easy schedule.
Defensively, I'm definitely worried about. What to me, the misnomer here is what I'm not missing, and maybe we talked about this off air a little bit. Maybe it's the O-line, and maybe they're worried about replacing the defense guys like Carpenter and Pons and Green, Walker, Kamara, all those guys, right? And obviously the coaching staff. But why are they the fifth best odds to win the Sun Belt? And I know it's a competitive Sun Belt.
Plus 800.
Plus 850. Plus 850 at James Madison is crazy. I mean, South Alabama, we love the Jags. We love the Jags in the show. Louisiana, though, at 3. I mean, yeah, we'll see there, right? But Texas State, App State above them. Like, I mean, I know you got Troy and Arkansas State and Coast. Like, we love the parity at the top of the bracket. I'm sorry, the top of the conference in the Sun Belt. But James Madison deserves to be one of those teams that's like, yeah, they're going to be pretty good this year. We don't want to play them this year because they're going to be well coached, right? They're talented, they're physical, blah, 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 all this stuff. Bob Chesney is going to just continue that culture that's there, and their schedule breaks to a nice one at App State, right? November 23rd. I don't want to spoil the whole Sun Belt for you guys, but that could be the game that decides, who's going from their division, right?
You
Because they're in
did
the
it.
Eastern Division.
You just spoiled it for everyone. You just
Well,
leaked the script.
too bad.
Unbelievable.
But we're still gonna watch it though. We freaking love the Sun Belt.
God, I love the Sun Belt. Let's move on. Let's talk about the CUSA. Yeah, I know you guys want us to talk about Liberty, but you shouldn't want us to, man. Everyone knows that Liberty has the easiest schedule in the country. Let's talk about FIU. Where's their love? Where's McIntyre's love? Huh? Let's give him some love. Well, I don't know if this is exactly love, but he has a very easy schedule. Look,
The chance is there.
the plus 10,000 to win the CUSA.
Dude, and I know like every schedule in the CUSA is crazy. What makes this schedule easier than other schedules in the CUSA is that they're out of conference. Is at Indiana is their toughest game. I mean, Central Michigan, Florida Atlantic, like they're gonna be probably not favored in those games potentially, and maybe Central Michigan, but like those are still winnable games or competitive games that you can play in and build momentum once you get into conference play.
Yeah, Sam Houston, Kennesaw State, Middle Tennessee with a new coach, by the way.
Derek Mason, dog.
Dog.
Well, I feel pretty good about, and I'm not gonna, throw it up there, but I feel pretty good about them getting to 4, 5, maybe even 6 wins. Like there's a real possibility that FAU's going bowling this year. I mean, Monmouth, you feel pretty good about. Louisiana Tech,
Well,
UTEP, who knows? Oh, we love UTEP, but like there
I'd
are
be
a
willing
lot.
to bet that they don't make a bowl game.
Well, I mean, their over win total is 4.5, so I hope you would. But
No, but I'd give you plus 300 odds if you're willing to take that right now for $5.
yeah, let's do it.
All right.
FIU going bowling, baby. Let's go Panthers.
FIU. So if they hit 6 wins and go, okay, I don't mean they hit 5 wins.
5 and 7. That still counts. Academics are important. Academics are important. Regardless of
I need to check. I need to check with their academic. I need to check with their
APR rating. APR. But okay, you guys came here to watch some FIU content. I'm gonna give you some, right? Keon Jenkins is back, right? But is that a good thing? We don't know. I mean, he struggled last year. 11 to 11 touchdown interception ratio was not great, but you got your 2 running backs back.
Oh, we're good.
Their academic rating back. That's fine. Don't go to class and just practice. We need you guys to win 6 games. We don't need to do it the old-fashioned way. But Chris Mitchell gone to Notre Dame. Juju Lewis comes in from Georgia Tech. Dean Patterson's back. His 15 yards per catch game last year. I'm going to just introduce you guys to a guy named Nazaba Burns, right? A wide receiver from Stetson. He's been one of their guys, leading receivers for a while now. In 2023, he was kind of balling out for 4 games, and he was like, you know what? I'm a redshirt, and I'm going to go transfer up a division. And he ended up at FIU because they had some openings. You get Philip Houston. I'm sorry, Philip Houston's gone. He's going to Colorado. Same with Jordan Garrard and Avery Huff, both gone as well. But Jamal Potts is back at safety. That's good, right? And you got to replace your linebacker, obviously. Donovan Manuel to the NFL off at the Vikings, right? No, good luck to him. But you'd hope to see improvement, right, from last year, because last year was tough, right? Last year was pretty tough. And I mean, it's the CUSA, right? And in a similar sense to the Big 12, where, I mean, other than Liberty, like a bunch of teams are pretty comparable talent-wise, potential, and like I know there's a little bit of a hierarchy there, obviously, but I mean, other than Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, right? In this year, right? In 2024, I mean, Mid Tennessee State's got some potential. Who knows about Kennesaw State? We who knows, but it's my point here is that FIU, like there is a scenario where they string together wins and maybe it's plus 300 and maybe it feels pretty good in my pocket come the end of the season. But the reality is the ninth worst odds though. Jeez Louise. Plus 10,000 to
What are
win
there
the conference.
11 teams in the CUSA?
I think there's 10 and
So
they
it'd be
don't even
Kennesaw State is the only one that's worse.
yeah, and Kennesaw State's not even listed on FanDuel's thing, which is
Oh,
probably
so
good
it's
because I would be hammering it. No, the reality is FIU, jeez,
degenerate
man.
behavior late at night.
Yeah. You got anything to say
Well,
about FIU? I mean,
I, I
FIU
think
Central
I think
Michigan.
Keon Jenkins is good. Am I alone in that? I think Keon Jenkins is pretty all right.
I mean, yeah, he's a dual threat guy. I mean, from Miami. I mean, in-state kid, obviously not far from,
Like I think they
Atlantic,
waited.
so,
I think they
or Florida
waited too
International.
long. 'Cause he did not play early last year, right? Like they put him in late, and he kind of gave him like I thought he gave him a little juice. I thought he gave him a little
Yeah.
juice. So I don't hate Keon Jenkins. I don't know. There's some CUSA fans that are probably gonna be like, this guy's a this guy stinks. He thinks Keon Jenkins is good at football. Ah, he's all right, dude. He's all right. I mean,
Well,
with the schedule, they could win 4 games, maybe 5, but definitely not 6.
come on. Okay, real quick, I want to ask you about Central Michigan, right? FIU. That's a pretty intriguing out of conference game, in week 2 there. If you're a sicko, right? And which we tend to
Oh
be,
yeah,
right? And if you're
obviously.
watching this FIU, easiest schedule thing, you're probably one yourself. And if you're still watching, by the way, hit the subscribe button and the like button. You're awesome. But FIU, Central Michigan, like that, Central Michigan probably gonna be favored in that game, even coming down to, your Miami area. But
Oh, 1,000. They're gonna be favored by like, mm, did I say a touchdown?
but okay, you're just a little bit high on Central Michigan's quarterback, aren't you? A
I
little bit
don't
high.
know.
A little
I
bit
love
high.
Bert Emanuel. I love him.
Tournament. But regardless, though, like don't think that's out of the possibility that FIU sneaks a win there or at least, tries to do something. And then you just build that momentum in the conference schedule. And who knows what can happen from there. I mean, after
Yeah.
Liberty, it really opens up. I mean, Jacksonville State will be tough, but I mean, Smothers comes in the game. Who knows?
Logan Smothers. She's still there, dang it.
I'm pretty sure he's the backup. I think about the kid from UConn, right?
Yeah. Gosh, that's not good. Okay, FIU is plus 19.5 against Indiana. So what is Central Michigan? I can't find their lines right now.
I don't know if they're up right now. That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I guess it'd be under a touchdown. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be under a touchdown for sure. But I don't know if Bert Emanuel is all of a sudden running for 300 yards a game. Those lines could get out of hand. Better
Well,
jump.
potentially.
Better jump on them early. That's all I'm gonna say.
All
All
right, we
right.
got we got to move on to the MAC here. We're talking about Buffalo. Buffalo, we think is the easiest schedule in the MAC, and this was a little bit of a debate, right? This was your team. You like Buffalo as the
Okay.
easiest schedule?
I like Buffalo as the easiest schedule. I don't like Buffalo at like this is not a upper echelon team in the MAC this year. I'm sorry. Dare I say it is a bottom half team in the MAC this year.
Well, I mean, the reason why you can look at that and be like, yeah, absolutely, because their over win total is 5.5,
Five and
right?
a half?
But
What?
they're the ninth worst odds out of 12 to win the whole thing, which is, part of that is their out of conference schedule where you're playing Lafayette, you're playing Massachusetts, you're playing UConn, right? Like teams you could absolutely beat.
No, literally. Literally. Like and in the MAC, right? Traditionally, you're like, all right, who are the teams that, you wouldn't want to draw, right? Toledo, number one, right? So they draw Toledo. All right. It is what it is. Ohio
Uh-huh.
is normally on that list, but Ohio is a different team. They got
Hmm.
absolutely clucked in the transfer portal. right? Including quarterback, wide receiver got plucked, running back got plucked. I mean, Ohio was a good football team last year. Not
Defensive
the
coordinator got plucked.
defensive coordinators all of a sudden at Memphis now. So a lot of stuff going down there. So yes, Ohio's win total's at 6.5, but I think that's also, because of their schedule as well. And
You
you get
miss you
Western
miss
Michigan at home. You
you miss
miss Miami,
Miami.
Ohio. You miss
You miss
Bowling
Bowling
Green.
Green. Yeah.
The, would I put NIU in that upper echelon? Probably not. Oh, but
Well,
you
I
do
think
have to
they're
play them.
definitely a tier below. They're definitely a tier below, your Miami Ohio's, right? Your Toledo's, right? I mean, dare I say Bowling Greens, right? But like they're still a tier above Buffalo for sure. And it go to Northern Illinois. But that's also like fine. Like you're not gonna win that game. You might not win that game anyways. Take it one of your road games and just figure it out. And then you get Ball State and you get Kent State and you get maybe a chance at Western Michigan to beat them at home. Although I like Western Michigan this year. But the reality is, I mean, this schedule was pretty favorable. Akron, Eastern Michigan, like you're seeing there are I'm sorry, wait, three, four, five, six, seven teams. Well, six and then plus Lafayette, right? But six teams that have a below 5 win total. And part of that's because UMass has an impossible schedule, right? But part of that's too because Kent State,
UMass
a lot of
stinks.
work to do.
Oh, we were
Come
saying different
on, come
things
on.
there.
Come on. Ball State has a lot of work to do, right? Eastern Michigan, I know you get the quarterback from Buffalo, but that's going to be a revenge game for those Buffalo players. And,
Yeah.
uh, Akron's got a lot of work to do. UConn obviously lost their quarterback. So yeah, it's to me, this was pretty favorable for a first year coach like Pete Lembo, right? And South Carolina guys are familiar with the MAC. What he did at Ball State was just win more games than he lost, which, like you said, not
Dude,
happen often.
I will say, I know I previously said that I'm not like that Buffalo is a bottom half MAC team. And if they made a bowl game, I would be fading the absolute piss out of them. However, just look at the schedule. Like they can make it to a bowl game. You're 100. And also, let's remember too, what is so important in the MAC, right? Good coaching is important in the MAC. Good coaching is important in the MAC. What do you have in Pete Lembo? He is the only head coach at Ball State in the last 30 years to have a winning record. He's the only one. Pete Lembo has been in the MAC before. He knows what it is. And you know what? I don't think this roster is the worst thing that it could have been. It could have been worse, right? Do I think that Maurice Linguist had some good things going on at Buffalo? I think, yeah, I think it was all right there, but I don't know. I don't know. I have yet to see. There's so much this team has to prove. However, you know how many you know how many graduate students they have on this offense?
Yeah, dude. And by the way, yeah, to me, that's what you love to see. You just love veteran players, good coaching.
So many of them. So many of them. So Buffalo over 5.5 wins this year. It could sneak into my plays this year. It could.
Well,
I'm not
this
lying.
is the last year of the COVID players, right? And so you're gonna see, this is the
That
end of
funny.
it,
Yeah, we were like
right?
every year we're like, this is the last year. We're getting that final wave of COVID players out of here. So it's
You
like,
get a year of eligibility, and you get a year of eligibility. No, but
yeah.
I think that's awesome. And to pair it with Dave Patton, right? And like that's the offense coordinator coming in with Pete
Hmm.
Lembo, who had some success at Georgia Tech, right? He took over Georgia Tech that had to change from a triple option to a spread
Yeah.
offense, which is, I mean, look at Wisconsin, right? Look at Phil Longo's an unbelievable offense coordinator, and that twist from a pro style run first offense to a little bit more spread, like Pete Lembo and what they were doing there at down in North Carolina. That was brutal to do. going from a triple option to a spread is crazy tough. And I mean, true freshman quarterbacks, this and that. And I mean, they ended up actually playing pretty darn well offensively. And I think that part of that was because of Patton, and he brings his experience to the MAC. And with Pete Lembo, I think that's awesome. Pairing with, obviously your veteran offense and your veteran offensive line, which is just, again, awesome to have.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So it might not be my plays, but I probably will bet this for
Well,
fun.
also, by the way, the MAC, right? A little bit different than every other conference, right? If
Oh
you
yeah.
watch the MAC, you know what we're talking about. Special teams does
Yeah.
matter. Fake punts, fake kicks, pinning guys deep, actually choosing to punt the ball on your 45-yard line instead of you just going for it whenever you want. Like you're playing these like weird games. Pete Lembo, with his special team backgrounds, I think absolutely helps him. And part of the reason why he was so good at Ball State
Not
relative.
just special teams backgrounds, elite special teams coaching background, elite pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, South Carolina had the number one special teams in college football 2 years ago. It is why, not a factor, it is why they went 7-5 and beat Tennessee and beat Clemson. Aside from, I mean, also Spencer Rattler was just in God mode as well. But uh, eh, I mean, special teams. I don't know if in the last 5 years I've seen a team benefit more from special teams than South Carolina did 2 years ago when Peyton Lembo was the special teams coordinator. Also at
Yeah.
Memphis when Pete Lembo was there. I mean, you had guys like Riley Patterson, returners like Anthony Miller, right? Was it there when he was there, I believe. So I don't, good coach, easy schedule, amazing conference. That's gonna do it for us guys today with our easiest schedules of college football for the year 2024. Make sure if you like the content, like the video. It's that simple. I know we were kind of goofing around a little bit today. I promise it'll be more serious as we get going, but just if you're gonna stick around, please subscribe. All right, please just think about it. All right, look, we're gonna be here. I promise you. If you're not sold already, even though you've watched however long this video is, if you're not sold yet, just stick around for our conference previews, right? You're going to want to hear some stuff. There's some good thought put into it. There's some good research. There's some great takes, great bets, And I mean, today we just made a bet. FIU to make a bowl game plus 300. I gave that to you. How do
I
you feel
love it.
about that, by the way? So plus 300. So that means like you're buying 1.5 wins. Honestly, it's probably more valued close to like plus 195.
A little bit more value than I probably could have gotten or should have gotten. But I mean,
No, you got
FIU,
yeah, you got great value there.
if you told me coming in today, I'm gonna be betting on FIU, would have been like, okay, well, what's going on here? The value was too good. I mean, I was feeling good about FIU. That schedule, looking at it, I mean, 6 wins are on there somewhere. Is it this year? Who
Under
knows?
4.5 is at minus 150.
Which is, I mean, I love my, minus 180 bets, but especially with the over on
Your Rutgers over to 3.5 at minus 188 was a play of the year, guys. It was a play of the year.
hashed.
Yeah, I cashed like week 5. All right. But anyways, enough goofing off. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. We love you guys and your support. CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, like Matthew said, like and subscribe. We hope you guys enjoyed. We're excited. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there.
All right. And we'll see y'all in the next one.